Okay, I think we're getting this working. I think I just did my intro without even realizing that I wasn't live yet. I think I should be live right now. I'm just making sure. I'm looking at this through like another screen, trying to make sure it's all working. That's weird. I'm not seeing anything currently. If you guys are actually able to hear this, I'm sorry. This might be a bit of a slow start. I've been having technical issues like all day, so I'm just trying to make sure that this all is fine. If it is all working. Just give me a minute. Of course, now this is when my Wi-Fi starts, like, crapping out. There should at least be music in the background. Hopefully you can just listen to that for a while. Okay, come on. What's going on? Yeah, are we all good? Okay, I think everyone's good. I think we're all good. I can see the chat now. I can see my screen. Everyone just type in like "cheese it" or something just to confirm that you're hearing me and we're all good. This is not how I wanted to start this off at all, but I was just it was all so confusing. I'm happy to see everyone in the chat. Everyone's saying hello. Thank you all so much. Just confirm that you can hear me or something. Because I don't want to go through all this without you guys not being able to hear me. Cheese it! Okay, great! Thank you! Thank you so much! I see everyone. Okay, perfect. Thank you guys so much for showing up for this. I really do appreciate it. This is kind of like my way of easing back into YouTube, you know? Like, it's been a while since I've posted, other than the Dream Season video, which I was really happy to get out last week. But other than that, yeah, it's been a while, and it really feels good to be back. So this is the first stream I've done in a while. Part of this was, you know, to ease back into videos. Another part, though, was to test out some new equipment that I got for Christmas, and unfortunately, that did not work out, because I've been working so much overtime in my day job, and again, technical difficulties have just been plaguing me this week. So instead, we're doing something a little more chill. We're just gonna, you know, tier list some champion death battles. So these are all of the death battles that were, you know, in the champion ballot, but also in the tournament of champions. So we're going to be tier listing all of them. If we scroll up here, you can see my tier list. And I've done this a little differently. It's not like A tier, B tier, C tier, or anything like that, or S tier. I wanted to make it a little more personal to me, because I don't want anyone saying, you know, oh, this matchup should have been higher, or this one should have been lower. Like, come on, man. Like, this is my list. I literally can't be wrong. You know? Like, you can have your own opinions. Just don't expect everyone to share all of your opinions, because 99% of the time, you're going to disagree on at least something. So I have, like, top 10 over here and top 30 and 50, because this is referring to my top 50 most wanted death battles, because there are actually a lot of battles here that are from that video. So I thought, instead of just grouping all of them into, like, top 50, I still wanted to put them into separate tiers. I think the more tiers there are, the more interesting it is, you know? And then we also have other tiers, like really like it kind of just means like it could have been in contention to be in my top 50, but other than that, you know, it's just like matchups that I really like otherwise, like just despite not being in my top 50 literally. And then you have like it, which is just like another version of that, like a smaller version of that. You have interested, which is like I'm not really looking forward to it on my own, but like if it was announced for Death Battle, I would get excited for it, you know, that kind of thing. So it's really just because of Death Battle's involvement that, like, if they announced it, then yeah, I'd be interested. There's Take It or Leave It, which means I don't really have an opinion on it, or like I don't really care whether or not it gets made. And then Don't Want to See It, which is for whatever reason, if I don't want to see a Death Battle, then I'll put it in there, and I'll explain why, obviously, when that happens. There are definitely a few of them that are going in there, but yeah, that's basically what I'm expecting for the tier list. Those are the tiers. If you guys like this kind of thing, you know, obviously let me know. I could do more streams streams like this, as long as my technology works okay. I could do more streams like this, or I could even do, you know, I could do more like actual videos like this, like hopefully with a webcam, you know, like when stuff is actually fully set up. I was supposed to be on screen for this stream, whatever we ended up doing, but again, that just didn't work out. You know, it's just way too busy this week. Way too busy this week. But yeah, if you like this kind of thing, let me know. I know at least a couple people have suggested that I do a tier list for all of the Kickstarter pitches, like the matchups that people have pitched to Ben and Chad directly. And that's a great idea. The only problem is that I've seen a lot of those videos, or sorry, a lot of those matchups, and I don't really have a lot to say about most of them, you know? So I wanted to at least start with something where I have a little more involvement in the matchups that I'm looking at, you know? Because again, these are all pretty big matchups at this point. And yeah, I'll try to keep an eye on chat. I have to devote a lot of my attention to this, of course, because I don't want things to get too boring. But yeah, so I'm just looking at chat right now. Yeah. And shouldn't there be an already happening tier? Very good question. I was considering doing that, but I want to talk more about the matchups themselves and my involvement with them, or my attachment to them. So I am going to talk about matchups and not really focus on the episodes, or like the episodes that came out with them. You know, I'm still just gonna leave it at the matchup. So good question, but I just wanted to clarify that. Why are there two Kratos versus Asura? Are there two Kratos versus Asuras? I see one over here. Oh shit, there is! There are two Kratos versus Asuras. I didn't make this tier list. I just found it online. So first of all, whoever made this tier list, thank you. I do not know why there are two Kratos versus Asuras. But we will get to that when we get to that. But yeah, I know Kratos versus Asura was on both of the champion events, but yeah, it feels like you don't really need two of them. But anyway, let's actually get started. I've yapped on for long enough, and now you're gonna hear me yap on even more about other stuff. So let's do this. So first of all, Captain America versus Kamen Rider Ichigo. Where would I place this one? So I feel like we're gonna start off with a bit of a surprise, because I have talked about Cap versus Ichigo a lot in various videos, you know. However, I don't love the matchup or anything. Like, there are a few reasons why I may talk about a matchup on the channel. It might be because I really like it. It might be because, you know, it got really highly upvoted on the, on what was it, you know, my Death Battle versus matchup review stuff, you know, all that. It's also possible that, you know, I'm talking about it because I think it's really popular, or I think it has really good prospects for happening in the future. That's really the only reason why I've been talking about Cap versus Ichigo as much as I have. I think the idea of bringing in Kamen Rider is really cool. There are at least two other Kamen Rider matchups, however, that I would want more than this one, so I feel like that's part of it as well. I think I'm gonna put it in interested. I think that's fair, because again, it's the kind of thing where, like, if Death Battle wasn't, you know, if it wasn't on the champion poll, I probably wouldn't think much about this matchup at all. But if it did get announced, then, well, for one thing, I'd be like, finally. But for another thing, I'd be like, okay, yeah, that's interesting. They're finally doing it. Let's go, you know? So not really anything I'm looking forward to just on my own, but, you know, I think interested is fair. Now, Among Us versus Fall Guys. So again, now we're getting into the territory of matchups that have already become episodes. But I am not focusing on the episodes for this tier list. I am focusing just on the matchups. So I want to be clear, if I was looking at the episode that Among Us versus Fall Guys had, this would be higher, because I really did enjoy the episode. I thought it was very cute. However, in terms of just the matchup itself, I'm going to put it in take it or leave it. Because it's just not one of my favorite, like, indie game style fights. There are other ones I definitely want more than it. And yeah, like, I think on my Blue Sky I was talking about how I think this matchup or this episode could be really good, because sometimes the weird stuff is good. But, like, other than that, I don't have an attachment to these characters or these worlds or anything, or this matchup. And I do think the episode should have happened earlier. If they were going to make this episode, I do think it should have happened earlier. But you know, what can you do? They just got to it when they got to it. But yeah, again, just as the matchup itself, I'm just not that attached to it. If they never made this episode, I wouldn't really know what I was missing out on, you know? Like, I wouldn't really care that much. But the episode itself is quite good. Okay, I just want to make that clear. Simone versus Kyle. So, obviously, I don't want to see this. No, I'm kidding. We're bringing this up all the way to the top 10. and now it's not in my top 10 anymore, but that's just because it's been confirmed. It was in my top 10 before, so anything that has ever been in my top 10 is going to go up here. In fact, I think we can actually just skip to Gru versus Megamind. I know I just put it in that you don't want to see it, but I got to kind of scroll up to put it all in. It's really annoying. But yeah, these two, again, these were in my top 10 before. They are now confirmed to happen. Probably the two matchups on this whole thing, actually, that I want to see the most. So, you know, the fact that they're confirmed is quite insane. But you guys have heard me talk about these matchups enough. I don't really need to go over why I love them. But yeah, they're like at the top of the list already. So yeah, really good. Ori versus the Knight. So, talking about indie games, this is the one I want to see the most. This is like my indie game fight. So, I think this was in my, it was in my top 50. I think it was in like the high 30s. So, it goes up here. And I will try to, I should have said this before, I will try to order this from like left to right, like what I want on the left is more than I want on the right of like a singular tier. Don't read too much into that though, because that could change like the next day and I might not be super accurate with it, but I'm going to try my best. So I'm just thinking like for all this stuff in the top 50 and top 30, I'm going to have to remember like where I placed them, because I don't necessarily remember my my top 50 matchups just off by heart. I know Finn and Jake versus Mordecai and Rigby, however, that was another one that was in the list. I think it was lower on the list because I think this was like high 30s and this was like low to mid 30s. Yeah, I really like both of these ideas. I think visually Ori versus the Knight could go so hard. And Finn and Jake versus Mordecai and Rigby, it's funny because it seems like either you really want Finn and Jake versus Mordecai and Rigby, like it's one of your favorite cartoon ideas, or you want something completely different, like you want Mordecai and Rigby to fight like Ian and Anthony or something, or you want Finn or Jake to get their own singular episode. And I'm kind of in the middle. It's like, this is the matchup that I want, but like it's not like up here for me or anything. But it seems like most people who want this would like put it in like their top 10 or 20, but for me it's just a little lower on my top 50, but I still really want to see this episode. But yeah, no, I really enjoy it. Bill versus Discord. So this is a bit of a different instance from Among Us versus Fall Guys, just because the episode coming out actively made me like this matchup more. I can't really say that about Among Us versus Fall Guys. While I enjoyed the episode, it didn't make me grow more attached to the matchup. This one did. So I feel like before I would have put it either in interested or like it. Now I'm thinking either like it or really like it. I think I'm going to put it in, I'm going to go for like a middle ground. I'm going to put it in like it. Again, if we were focusing on the episode, then like it would be higher. But again, just matchup itself, like, you know, I'm not that interested in My Little Pony or anything. And like Gravity Falls is cool. I do like Gravity Falls, but you know, I think just as a matchup itself, I think it's fair to just say I like it. It's not like that personal to me, but to just put it in interested, like the episode was really good, and like, yeah, I do like the matchup. Now, Cole versus Alex, again, this is kind of weird because I like the matchup of Cole versus Alex more than Bill versus Discord, but I like the episode of Bill versus Discord more than Cole versus Alex. So, again, if this was a different tier list, things would be a little different, but that's not how we're doing it. So, I do think, however, and this is interesting, because I'm just looking at like the stuff in my top 50, even though I never made a top 50 while this episode was coming out, or while it hadn't come out yet, I can guarantee that if I made a top 50 in like when season 9 was coming out, this would have been on it. Because I'm even looking at these guys and I'm thinking, I like the matchup of Cole versus Alex more than these two. So I think for the time being, I'm actually going to put it here. Yeah, move over. There we go. Okay, I'm actually going to put it here. That may or may not change. Things may or may not change depending on how I'm feeling later in the stream. I'm doing this all live, by the way. Like, I'm making all these decisions live. But yeah, I think this is fine because I'm just more attached to this matchup than these two. It might even get booted up to top 30 if I feel like it. But I think for right now, I'll just leave it at that. But yeah, next up, Kratos versus Asura. So should we just do both Kratos versus Asuras now? Because we have one over here and one over here. I still have no idea why there are two of them. So the problem with Kratos versus Asura. So first of all, I am very excited for the episode. I think Asura's preview just dropped. I have not seen it. I don't like seeing the previews ahead of time because you know, I don't want to be spoiled for the reaction video. But I have kind of complained about Kratos versus Asura before, just because I do find it frustrating how it's like a single decision about how you analyze the episode could very well change everything. However, most matchups where I have that issue is more like, well, one character has a very specific object or ability where it's like, you know, is it standard for them or is it not? And like, that's really where I have that issue. Like, I really don't like that kind of debatability. With Kratos versus Asura, though, it's more like, do you include lore or do you not include lore? And that's not really specific to Kratos versus Asura itself. Like, that's more akin to, like, do you include scaling or do you not include scaling? Like, it just happens to apply to Kratos versus Asura to a large degree. What's more frustrating, though, is that people seem to change their opinion on whether or not lore should be included depending on the matchup or depending on the characters involved, which is one of the most hypocritical things I have ever seen in this community. But as far as this matchup goes, I do think it is very cool. I think the production potential is off the wall. I think I'm going to put... which one do I like more between these two? Because I think I'm going to put it in like it. I almost put it in interested, but I think, you know, again, reevaluating my actual debate preferences, I don't think this one is that bad. I think the connections are okay. I think I'll leave it here for now. I think that's fine. And then the other Kratos versus Asura, where'd you go? There you are. I guess I'll just put it next to it. I don't really want to leave one behind in here, so I guess I'll just do that. I think that's fine. Steve versus Emmett. So this one... like, I don't have any strong feelings about this one. I know there are people who, like, either really prefer this one or really prefer Emmett versus Jesse for Minecraft story mode. So I think if I really had to pick which one I like more, like, I think just categorically for most matchup perspectives, I would say Emmett versus Jesse I prefer a little bit more. But if you're going off of, like, the iconography of the series and the characters, then, like, I could just see Death Battle going with this one just because of that alone. You know, there's a reason why it was in the champion poll and not Emmett versus Jesse, you know, let's be fair. And I know some people do genuinely prefer this one, maybe for debate reasons, I'm not 100% sure. This might offend some people. I'm going to put it in take it or leave it, because if they never did this episode, I wouldn't really mind that much. Like, Lego Movie 2 left a really bad taste in my mouth, if I'm being honest. But yeah, like, there are so many matchups out there with, like, that infinite creativity potential, and there's so many more that I like more than this one. So there's only so many episodes where I can think, like, oh yeah, I want to see it because of the infinite creativity potential and all that, and, like, this one's just not one of them, you know? So, like, I don't really mind whether or not this one happens, as long as, like, some of my other favorite matchups in that category happens, you know? Yeah, I'm seeing some people saying, yeah, Steve has Terraria, and Steve does have Terraria, and I do think that works for him as well. Steve is one of those characters where he can have a lot of different matchups, but not all of them will be created equal. It's just there's a string you can pull on that you can, like, match him with, like, so many different characters. But yeah, I'd say take it or leave it for this one. If it was Steve versus Terrarian, it might actually be a little higher, but I don't know. I think this is okay. Now we have King Ghidorah versus Deathwing. I do like giant, like, monster or mech fights as long as they're good. I have seen other opponents for both of these characters. Like, I think I've seen, like, Alduin from Skyrim versus Deathwing, which sounds interesting as well. But frankly, I've gotten into more of, like, a Godzilla kick lately, so I don't mind this one for Deathwing. I actually think it's interesting. I think I'm gonna put it on, like, the lower end of like it, because there's a part of me that thinks, like, well, you know, if Death Battle didn't introduce it to me, like, would I be thinking about it that much? Like, do I want it independently from just, like, what Death Battle has said about it? But I think, honestly, I have gotten to the point where I am thinking about it more, and I am thinking about how cool it would be, so, I think it's fine to go in there. But again, it'll probably be on, like, the lower side, because there are just other ones in like it that I am more, you know, attached to. This one, what are the characters' names again? I remember I looked this up because I forgot the characters' names. I looked it up, like, yesterday, and now I don't even remember. I think it's I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Is it like Illidan versus Zhao? I think that's right. So it's World of Warcraft versus Genshin Impact. This to me is like baseline, like the definition of take it or leave it for me. I think it goes here. I have not seen like anyone talk about this matchup since it was on the champion poll. I remember some people asking how the hell did it even get on the champion poll. So it's like I have not thought about this matchup since 2022. I don't want to put it in like don't want to see it. I have nothing against it. It's just I have not thought about it since then. So I think it's like the most like baseline take it or leave it matchup I could think of. No offense to anyone who likes it. It's just like I don't know. I just haven't really. I'm not attached to it. Okay, not Steve. Spy versus Agent. Maybe his name is Steve. Spy versus Agent 47. This is a very easy. Again, I'm not putting it in just here. I need to scroll up. This is a very easy. Really like it. Like I said, the really like it tier for me is kind of like, did I consider it for my top 50? That's like a really good qualifying factor for really like it, because it means that I am really interested in it regardless. And this one, yes, this was in contention to be in my top 50. So it's not in my top 50, but I do still really enjoy this idea. I know some people were shouting, John Wick versus Agent 47 a while back. I don't really see that happening, at least not before this one. Like, now that this has gotten popular, and even popular enough to be on the champion poll, yeah, I just don't really see that one happening before this. I think this is just the one that's inevitably going to happen. Steve the Spy, yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm just taking a look at the chat right now, because I don't want to completely disregard the chat. Wolf versus Scorpion is probably my most wanted as a Sekiro fan. That's totally fair, and we'll get to that when we get to that. We're just going through all of these in order. So these are all the champion... Oh, and also Groove versus Megamind. But other than that, these are all of the champion poll or champion ballot matchups. That spy is a spy. Hell yeah, he is. Yeah, sorry about that. This is all live. Give me a break. Okay, let's move on. So Luz versus Anne. So this is one that a lot of people are really interested in. For me, this is very similar to Cap versus Ichigo. I think the problem is that Luz versus Anne, they come from cartoons that was just after my time. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't really... I don't really have an investment in the series. There are other cartoon characters or other cartoon matchups that, feel like Luz versus Anne does to other people. Like, even some of them are on this list, like Jimmy versus Dexter. Like, that's a great example, of like one that feels like a Luz versus Anne type to me. So for people who, are like really like the series or who are in that demographic, it's like, I totally get why you love it. Like, I would probably love it too if I was in the demographic. I'm just not. So it's between, again, it's between interested and like it. I'm not sure which one. I think I'll put it in like it for now. And do I want to put it? Yeah, I'll probably put it one above here. I think this is fine. Because I do like it a little more now that I've learned more about it. And that's another thing. Like, your placement for this could totally depend on like how much you know about matchups, because I don't know everything about every matchup, but I have learned more about this one, and I think this one I've gotten to the point where I can say, yes, I like it. It's not just that I'd be interested, it's like, yeah, I'm now actively hoping for it a little bit, so I think that's fine. Monokuma versus Koro Sensei, I do not want to talk too much about this one, because this will be in my next versus matchup review video, so I'm going to talk a lot more about it there. However, I will say that I really like this matchup. I have gotten a lot more into it, especially after, what was it? The Death Battle cast episode with the Imaginary Axis. Oh my god. Like, Imaginary Axis, for one thing, is one of my favorite YouTubers of all time. And his passion for this episode and how much, like, he wants people to learn more about, like, Assassination Classroom and all that, like, that made me passionate about it. So before, if that episode didn't come out, I'd probably put it like either in like it or interested, but like, I'm really into this one now. I think it's really cool. Probably even edging out Spy versus Agent 47 a little bit, but again, that's hard to say. Don't read too much into that. But I'll talk more about this in my versus matchup review video whenever that comes out, because I still want to do those. Next up, Shulk versus Lightning. So this was the matchup I voted for in the Tournament of Champions in round 1. Not this one. Nowadays, I would have voted for this one. But back then, I voted for you. Yeah, I like this one. I think it's fun. I think, again, like, going into other realms of Final Fantasy, I think is nice. I'm kind of more partial to Loki versus Kefka, though. That's kind of like the one that I gravitate to for that appeal. But I think Xenoblade is also really interesting. I feel like, yeah, for me to vote for it and not put it up here, I think is a little weird. Although I know for a fact I'm going to contradict myself just by saying that for other stuff here, but we'll get to that later. But yeah, I think I like this one. Would I put it above here? Yeah, I think that's fine. Right around here. It's cool. Okay, Kaisen, this chick versus Fleetway Sonic. This is another one that for me is like straight take it or leave it. Like, I don't know. I know a lot of people want her series to come to Death Battle, but I just have like no investment in that series, so like that doesn't really apply to me. And like I kind of feel like we don't need any more like versions of Sonic. Like we have 2 pools of Sonic to choose from. Like we have the regular games and you know, Archie Sonic. If you want to well, first of all, I already kind of have an issue with like using specific versions of characters if it's not like motivated by something really important or really good. But if you're gonna do it, at least do like other characters. Don't just keep going back to like all the different versions of Sonic, in my opinion. I love Sonic as a series, but like I just be more interested in other stuff, you know? And again, like this is one where I have not thought about this, very similar to this. I have not thought about this matchup since it was on the Tournament of Champions. So don't forget about movie Sonic. I mean, yeah, like, I don't know. That might be interesting. I don't even know if Death Battle would do that, to be honest. But again, it's like, if you're going to use other versions of characters, like, maybe just move on to some other characters. So, yeah, again, I'm just trying to read the chat. I straight up don't care about this matchup. The Fleetway Sonic? Hell yeah. Sonic from, it's still like the Fleetway comics, right? Like it's the same as like Archie, that's why he's called that. Or Sonic the Comic, that's what it's called. Yeah, again, I just have not thought about this matchup since then. But yeah, okay, moving on. Zeus versus Odin, I love this one. You'll know this was in my top 50. I think it was like in the high 40s, so it would go right around here. I'm a big mythology buff, you know, like, or it's not even that I know the most about mythology. I'm just really interested by it, you know. I loved Hercules versus Sun Wukong, and I just think this is an episode that, like, if you're running a series called Death Battle and you're comfortable using mythology, you should do this one. Like, even if you can find out, like, oh, it's one-sided or something, like, it's just one of those matchups that Death Battle should cover. It's like Kirk versus Han to me. Like, if you're one of the biggest versus shows in existence, how can you not do this? You know? I don't know. That's kind of how I see it. But yeah, top 50 again. So far, I think this is accurate. We haven't gotten to anything from the 11 to 30 range yet. But I'm sure we'll get there. I'm pretty sure there are some in there that fit that. Little Mac versus Ippo, that's another one that I really like. I think it goes right here. Yeah, again, maybe it's my Balrog versus TJ combo bias, because that's one of my favorite episodes of all time. But I think if, like, with how much Death Battle has leveled up in quality since, like, Season 4, like, I think if they did this and they just, like, made it better than Balrog versus TJ combo, like, how amazing would that be, you know? I don't have a lot to say about it. I just think, yeah, it's one that I really like. Not in my top 50, but it's one that I am, like, actively thinking about. Peacemaker versus Soldier Boy. This one is interesting to me because I love the versions of Peacemaker and Soldier Boy that are pictured here. I love them. I love John Cena as Peacemaker. I love Jensen Ackles as Soldier Boy. I've been watching Supernatural, by the way. I'm on like either I think I'm on season 5. I'm in like the beginning middle of season 5, and like Dean is awesome. But that's been a fun time. And John Cena, I think, is like such a great actor. yeah, at least in comparison to like other wrestler turned actors, although Dave Bautista is also really good. I'm mostly just thinking about The Rock when I say that, to be honest. But yeah, I love these versions of the characters, but I don't have a lot of experience with like the main stuff that would be used for them, that being the comics. Like, I don't have a lot of experience with comic Peacemaker or comic Soldier Boy. I have heard some people throw out the concern that because comic Soldier Boy is like so far removed from TV Soldier Boy that it just wouldn't really make a lot of sense. It does appeal to me though. So I'm kind of between like really like it and like it, because I just think like they would model the personalities in the animation off of the TV versions, or like movie and TV versions. So I think that'd be awesome. I would probably love that. So do I put it in really like it? Do I put it in like it? I don't know. That's really hard. It's either going to go at like the top of like it or the bottom of really like it. I think for now I'll put it at the bottom of really like it, because it just has so much personality to me. Like, and with someone who's, again, has consumed like all the media where that personality stands out, I just think that'd be so much fun. Comic Soldier Boy is weaker than the show one. Okay, that's interesting. Peacemaker would stomp Comic Soldier Boy so much. Okay, well, again, Death Battle would probably just end up combining them anyway. So, but even still, I still like the idea. I might move it down to like it if maybe like depending on what else I put up, and like if I think, well, like relative to this one, I should move it around, but I'll put it in here for now. I just think it's a really fun idea. Ragna versus Velvet. I like this one well enough. It's okay. Again, it's the kind of thing where I just don't have a lot of attachment to the characters. I do think though that Ragna should come back, or at least someone from Blaze Blue, but I think Ragna deserves it. I think Velvet Crow would be interesting, but I don't think I can put it up here because it's not one that I'm like ever thinking about like just on my own. But I will say that I am interested. I think that's fine. Again, I could see some people who really love Ragna or really love Velvet putting it higher, and that's totally cool. But for me, it's like, yeah, I'm just interested. If it happened, I would be excited, but I'm not excited for it outside of Death Battle potentially announcing it. You know what I mean? I hope that makes sense. Okay, now we have Sailor Moon versus Madoka. I'm putting it here. And the only reason why I'm particularly putting it there is because I really want Seiya versus Usagi. And the fact is, like, if I see this one happen, then it's either means that Seiya versus Usagi is not going to happen, or it's going to happen, like, way later. That's going to dictate, like, some of these where, like, I don't want to see it. It's just because, like, maybe I want to see something else. I think the matchup itself is okay. I know some people really don't like it, which I think is fair, too. I think, like, some kind of magical girl episode would be really great. And my preferred that I can think of is probably, like, Kurumi Tokasaki versus Homura Kemi, another Madoka character. So I think that one is probably the one I'd prefer. But yeah, like I'm just not, I just prefer her to fight someone else, really. Because that's like number 19. Like if that was on the tournament, it would be like up here, So that's one of my favorite matchups that hasn't happened yet. So I feel like just the way that this is worded, like don't want to see it. I feel like I kind of have to put it in here because I want to see something else. I hope that's okay with everyone. Anyway, Scorpion versus Wolf, Sekiro. So this is the one that I think the Tournament of Champions has influenced my opinion on the most, because this is super dope. I've said before, like, I really want another Scorpion matchup. I think this was like number 16 or 15 on my top 50 list. I've wanted a Scorpion episode, another Scorpion episode for a long time, and I think this is the one. I think this is the perfect one for him at this point. Maybe other opponents will be thrown around or found out about later, but I just think this one would be awesome. So yeah, this again, Tournament of Champions definitely influenced my opinion on this because I just love it. Composite Ryu versus Composite Goku. It's not that I don't like the idea. Is that I'm kind of turned off by the idea of compositing in general, because I don't know. I think it just opens some unnecessary floodgates, and I think the window for bias and like cherry picking what you include is a lot. I think that window is a lot bigger, and I don't think that's a good thing. So from that perspective, I don't really love just the idea of saying like, oh yeah, we're compositing and we're leaving the door open to composite other stuff later. Like, again, I already have an issue with like, well, not an issue, just like, I think if you're using a specific version of a character, it needs to be motivated by something other than just, you know, oh, I like this version of the character, or I want this character to have a better chance against this opponent, you know? But compositing, I think, yeah, that's just, it's not really my, it doesn't appeal to me as much, you know? So it's either going and take it or leave it, or don't want to see it. Don't want to see it seems kind of harsh, but like, I even just kind of feel like if they were going to do other composite episodes, like I feel like there might be more that I want more than this one. So, like even composite Goku versus composite Sonic might be more interesting to me, but I'd have to look into that a little more. I know it's a little ironic talking about like, oh yeah, all these versions of Sonic that I don't want to see, but like if we're talking about composite, like I'm just thinking like what other composite options are there? So it's either take it or leave it, or don't want to see it. I think for now I'll put it at the bottom of take it or leave it, because I can see some reasons why I wouldn't want it, but I think saying actively I don't want to see it, I think that's a little harsh. So I might move it down later though in the stream if I feel so inclined. Although if you really want something to go and don't want to see it, Luke versus Saber. I think I'd put this one a little above because, come on, don't fail on me. Because again, with this one, I have like more of a specific reason why I don't want to see it. Again, the whole like Seiya Moon thing. Luke versus Saber, I just find so uninteresting. For one thing, I think it's more. I think if Death Battle really wants to use more Star Wars characters, I think they should lean more with like either Sith characters or just non-Jedi, because a lot of them are very similar to each other. They scale to very similar things, whereas the Sith have like very different abilities from one another a lot of the time. And Jedi can too, but not to the same degree. I wouldn't mind seeing Luke coming back. With all that being said, I just think a Fate character just makes it really boring. And I think Fate should be on the show, but again, not like this. I think something where Fate can be used in a more interesting way. So yeah, I just don't really want to see this one. If Luke does come back, I think you can find a better opponent for him. And I think if Fate comes in, even if you want to use Saber specifically, you can find a better opponent for her too. Wile, Coyote versus Tomcat. So obviously this is the one that won the Tournament of Champions. The one I wanted to see win was Gru versus Megamind, but it's happening anyway, so you know, it's fine. Wile versus Tom, I think I can safely put it in really like it, but where do I put it in really like it? I think I want it, again, I'm getting it anyway, so it's like, I want it more than this one. We're getting it anyway. I think here, I think this is fine. I'm much more into Looney Tunes than I am Tom and Jerry. Weirdly enough, even though I loved Looney Tunes, I did not get that much into Tom and Jerry. I think it's mostly because I like the variety of the Bugs Bunny and Tweety show, how they could like show you something new, like so I was already getting on that, like, you know, the brain rot mindset by saying like, you know, new content like every 2 minutes or whatever. But I don't know, like, I think I would have liked Tom and Jerry if I just gave it a chance when I was young. But I always wanted to watch Looney Tunes instead. But I do still really like this idea. Just know that I definitely have the character that I'm rooting for. Who I think is going to win, we'll save that for the actual prediction video whenever this gets announced sometime this year. But yeah, I think this is a great, you know, just Toon Force idea. There are others I like more than it, but I still think it's great. Hiccup and Toothless versus Hero and Baymax. Actually, both of these two go in like the same, they're like the same thing. This one is currently my second most wanted death battle of all time. It would be below both of these two still, but again, they're not in my top 10 anymore because they're happening. And Sackboy versus Maxwell, I think, was like number 8. So we'll put that over here. Yeah, I love both of these. Hiccup and Toothless versus Hero and Baymax, it's like I started off loving it, then I kind of just didn't love it as much as I used to, and now I love it again. Like, it's just one of my most wanted death battles, one of my favorite matchups ever. And then Sackboy versus Maxwell. Yeah, my Discord really really infected my brain with this one. But again, it's like, this is one of those many infinite potential matchups that, like, I really want to see. And mostly for that reason. I also love Scribblenauts. Scribblenauts is such a great game. And if you haven't checked out these movies, check them out. They're great. My favorite in the How to Train Your Dragons is How to Train Your Dragon 2. I might want to rewatch them again, but I think 2 is my favorite. 3 is my least favorite, although I still think it's good. I think, or it's between like okay and good, I think. Overall, I think it is the strongest DreamWorks franchise, if you include everything. Like, you have like Shrek 2 and Puss in Boots 2, you know, which are great, but like, if you look at all the Shrek movies, you know, on average, this one has a better average, you know? Same with like Kung Fu Panda, especially after 4 came out. Yeah. And Big Hero 6, I'd love a sequel, like an actual movie sequel to this, but, you know, who knows? Sackboy versus Maxwell sounds awesome. Almost said awful. No, Sackboy versus Maxwell sounds awesome, yes. Big Hero 6 deserves a sequel, yes, absolutely agree. Based picks, thank you so much. Or, if you mean more about just these matchups, like, this is just what was on the champion stuff, but if you mean, like, where I'm placing them, then thank you, I appreciate that. Okay, moving on. Homer versus Peter. Yes, sir. This one goes another one in the top 30. I think it was like 20 something. Yeah, I love this one. I do not care that they've already fought in like a canon crossover. I just don't think it's fully representative of like the people who made the show are not going to be like, you know, thinking about everything these characters have ever done. And they've done stuff since the crossover, even if you want to make the argument that, well, you know, they still have to, like, you know, use everything at their disposal. Like, there's still been stuff that's happened since then. And again, I just don't think it's the most representative of, like, what Death Battle is. That is a fully story-driven thing, and Death Battle's not. So, I don't think that's a really good argument for saying why it can't happen. But, yeah, of course, you can feel however you want to feel. This tier list is looking really full right now, actually. We have, like, what, 14 left? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, we have 14 left. Okay. What do we got now? Jimmy Neutron versus Dexter. This is probably the last one of the top 10. I don't think there's anything else in here that goes in there. There are others that go into my top 50 overall, but I think in terms of the top tier, I think this is done. This is my number 10 most wanted. Again, if you were to include these ones in the top 10, then this one would not be here because it would take up spots above it. But again, you know, anything that's been in the top 10, I think is fair game for this. So, yeah, for sure. Naruto versus Luffy. This might piss some people off if they didn't see my top 50, but I actually put this one in here too. I think, was it below Zeus versus Odin? I think these two were like right next to each other. I think it was below Zeus versus Odin, so I think it's at the bottom. At this point, I've just come to accept Naruto versus Luffy. Like, I think connections-wise, yeah, like, it's very baseline, very just like, oh, there's shonen protagonists that eat a lot, and others, you know, some other stuff, like super forms. But there's a point where I think, you know, if you can't find a great opponent for someone, just put them against, like, the most fitting, you know, just either for legacy or, like, classic or whatever. And I think Naruto versus Luffy is still a very hard-hitting legacy. Like, Luffy, I do not think has a perfect opponent. That's what I'm saying, you know? Naruto, his spread, or at least his active spread that people are talking about, is not as big. Luffy, again, kind of like Steve, is one of those characters where you can find a lot of opponents for him, but it doesn't really matter because, like, there's not really, like, a perfect one. Some people like Luffy versus Plastic Man, and I understand that. But for me, I just go with Naruto versus Luffy. I think, like, if nothing else, this one still has such a strong legacy behind it that it puts it above the other ones for me. But I understand some people really don't like legacy, and I don't even think legacy should be the most prioritized all the time, but I don't know. That's just my personal preference. Lucina versus Grovile. Again, to me, this is a very, like, textbook, take it or leave it. I think I'd probably put it, like, here. Yeah, I don't know. I know, like, this is one of those where it's like either people really like it or they really don't. For me, I'm just kind of in my own little corner of, like, I recognize it's a matchup that exists. I understand why it exists, but I don't know. I'm just not that invested in it. I don't really know what else to say, to be honest. It's just like I get the matchup. I get why some people want it, but and like Fire Emblem, we had one character before, and that was a good episode. Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, sure. Like I'd be down to see that, but this matchup itself just like it doesn't particularly appeal to me at all, you know? I'm surprised actually Interested is not like I have more strong opinions on most of these than I expected. I would have expected Interested to be filled up a little more. X versus Optimus Primal, this is another easy really like it. Do I put it above or below Spy versus Agent 47? I think I'll put it one below. But I see these as like tied, basically. Again, this is another one where I don't want to talk too much about it because it will be in my next versus matchup review video, kind of like Monokuma versus Koro Sensei, but this is another one that especially more recently has jumped up for me. Again, it's like now this would probably be the one that I would have voted for. Actually, I was going to go over which ones I voted for in each round. I forgot to do that. Shulk versus Lightning was the one I voted for in the first round. Gru versus Megamind, obviously the one in the second round. Scorpion versus Wolf in the third round. In the fourth round, I think... Crap. Or in the fourth round, it was Sackboy versus Maxwell, actually. Again, this was back when I was kind of just starting to rediscover Hiccup and Toothless versus Hero and Baymax. But also, I released a trailer, like a fan-made trailer for Sackboy versus Maxwell the day that it came into the tournament. So I'm like, okay, this is fate. Like, this just makes my decision easy. I have to vote for this one. And then round 5 was Jimmy versus Dexter. Now, round 6 was not this one, even though nowadays it would have been this one probably. Round 6, I actually voted for Percy versus Zag. And the reason why I did that was because I would prefer to see Percy in the show than not see him in the show. You know what I mean? And especially now that they have talked more in like ballot banters and stuff, and the fact that this was on the Tournament of Champions, I basically now expect this to be the Percy episode. I think this is the one we're going to get, if one at all. So from that perspective, I should put it higher. Kind of like, again, the reasoning why I voted for it. If I'm using that same reasoning, then it should be pretty high on the list because I just want Percy to come on the show. But I have to admit, while I don't hate Percy versus Zagreus as a matchup as some other people do, as much as some other people do, I would prefer Percy to fight other characters. So, again, kind of using the same logic as Moon versus Madoka, I feel like I kind of have to put it here. But again, I'll put it a little higher because I do want Percy to be on the show. But, like, I have other preferred opponents for Percy. So, kind of just holding out hope that maybe they will reconsider. I kind of just have to put it here. Although if I knew for like 100% certainty this was the only way Percy was getting on the show, I might consider putting it maybe in like Interested or maybe even Like It. But, you know, just holding out hope that maybe he'll fight someone else, I feel like I have to put it here. If you like this one, that's cool. It's just not really where I want to see Percy. Similar thing here, Scott Pilgrim versus Kazuma Sato. This one, I guess I'll put it maybe the top of the tier list here. I want to see Scott on the show. Kazuma is not really where I see him, though. I think he has better opponents. I think Travis Touchdown is really cool. And I think Death Battle said at one point that they think they, like, missed the timing for that one. Although it didn't stop them... I was going to say it didn't stop them from doing this one, although that's because people voted for it. But people still like that episode. And it definitely didn't stop them from doing Among Us versus Fall Guys. So, yeah. This, I don't know. Do I put it here or here? I'm not sure. I think I'll put it here for now. Because at least I could still say, like, oh, Scott got on the show. That's cool. And Kazuma, I think, also has potentially better. So I think it's just a matter of, like, each of these characters, I would actively prefer other opponents for them. I think that's really what it boils down to. This is another one, Spike versus Revy, that the Tournament of Champions actively made me like more. I think, though, it's at the, like, close to the bottom of my top 50. I think it's like 49 or something. But I do really enjoy this matchup. This is another one that will be in a versus matchup review video. Not the next one, because I only do like 8 or so per video. But I think the one after that, I have no idea when these videos are coming out, but this will be another one that goes in there. Just because, again, it was the most upvoted for one of the weeks. Because that's how, if you guys didn't know, that's how like I determine the versus matchup review video lineups. That like I do it on my community tab, and it's like, oh, who do you think would win in a death battle? Leave a comment, and if it gets the most likes, it'll be the next one. And then that kind of just keeps going, and then I compile those into a video. That's how I decide, like what matchups go in there. In case you didn't know, even though I feel like I've said it like a dozen times. Hulk versus Godzilla. A lot of people do not like this one. And again, it's kind of frustrating to look at it right now because we are getting it for sure. Either like later in 2025 or maybe even the beginning of 2026. I've wanted to see Godzilla come back for a while now, and I do like Hulk. It's gonna be so fucking funny if Hulk loses again. Like he joins Goku in the 0-3 club. 0 wins, 3 losses. But I am still interested in how Death Battle will pull this off, because I think they could do it. Especially after seeing, like, Great Ape Uzaru versus Omni-Man, like that section of Omni-Man versus Bardock. I think they could make this work. I think it could still be a fun time. And again, with Godzilla, me wanting Godzilla to come back, Hulk is the one that, I kind of just accept that he's the one that will fight him. And I do like both of the characters a lot. So I think putting it in Take It or Leave It is a little too harsh, because if it did happen, I would probably like be interested in seeing how it turns out. So I think at the bottom of interested is fine. Now we're filling up interested maybe a little more. That's good to see. Next up, Palpatine versus Xehanort. That one is in my top, I think it's somewhere in my top 20. I think it goes like right here. Ah, come on. These two did not want to split up. Yeah, Palpatine versus Xehanort. See, this is it. Like, this is so much more of an interesting Star Wars matchup to me than like Luke versus Saber. And I know we got Yoda versus King Mickey, but I think these guys are different enough. Like, we've seen from Vader versus Obito, whether or not you agree with the decisions that they made, I know I still have my issues with it. But just as far as like talking about what they can do, like, there were differences, because the Sith is different from the Jedi, and, you know, the not all Naruto characters can do the same. And this is very similar to me. Like, I think, I don't want to say when they eventually get to it, but I will. When they eventually get to this one, like, I just think it's going to be such a fun time. And I love villains. I love villains who, even if there are some complexities to them, I love them just for loving being evil, you know? Ellie versus Clementine, another one in my top 50. Where are you, though? It's somewhere, it's like 30 something. I think it's here, if I recall correctly. I think it's like one spot below the Knight versus Ori. For me, like, yeah, I think as far as just like the zombie killer matchups go, I just think this one's the most interesting. I did watch the Last of Us TV show, and I'm very excited for it to come back because I did really enjoy it. So yeah, I think the actress who plays Ellie is phenomenal. And then Clementine, again, like Walking Dead. It kind of depends on like what avenues of Walking Dead you want to explore, but I just think thematically this works so well. Freddy Krueger versus Pennywise, another one. See, like, now we're getting into like a lot of the big ones for me. I told you there's a lot of these on here that just happen to be in my favorite. I think this one's at the end, because I think it was one below Homer versus Peter. Yeah, Freddy versus Pennywise. Last year especially, this one really started to grow on me. I think it's great. I think for a Halloween episode, for like the next true horror Halloween episode, I think this should be the one. As far as the next Halloween episode, I think Mysterio versus Scarecrow could happen, but, you know, we'll see about that one. That one is high. If this was on the Tournament of Champions, it would have been like higher in this range, but yeah, I still think Freddy versus Pennywise is just awesome. I think it could, as long as they devote enough time to it, I think it could fix a lot of the issues that, or just not have a lot of the issues that people had with Jason versus Michael, because you kind of have to go big with this one. So yeah, I think that'd be great. Skeletor versus Lord Zed. This is another very clear, like, interested for me. I think I'll probably put it here. More Power Rangers would be nice. And we haven't had a He-Man character since season 7. But it's not one that I'm really thinking like, oh yeah, like we gotta see this one. They are villains, you know, I think that's awesome to see. But again, there are so many other villain fights I just want more than this one. But I'm interested. If they announced it, I'd be like, oh, okay, let's see what you got. Let's see how it goes. What do we got after that? Sans versus the Judge. Again, kind of similar to like Cap versus Ichigo and Luz versus Anne. It's like, yeah, like it's grown on me a little bit just from how much I've talked about it. It's not my favorite in the world though. I think I'd probably put it in, it's either interested or like it. It's either like, again, at the top of interested or the bottom of like it. This is going to piss some people off. I'm going to put it at the top of interested. Again, it's just not one that I've really latched onto that much. There's a lot of like popular games that I just never got into, like Undertale, Minecraft, Fortnite, Among Us. Like you know, like this little grouping of stuff, it's like, yeah, I'm just not that invested in them. If you're invested in Sans versus Judge, you're going to put it like really high, and I totally respect that. But like, yeah, I'm even just looking at the ones like up here and like, yeah, all of these I'd probably want to see more than Sans versus the Judge, but that's just me personally. But yeah, that's just kind of how I see it. And then Grinch versus Jack. This is in my top 30. Is this right? Yeah, because it was like the middle of the pack, so like either like 25, 26. Yeah, Grinch versus Jack is great. I'm surprised I like it as much as I do. I do think part of it is very personal, but I just think the craziness that could ensue from this is like, it's greater than it has any right to be. Greater than it has any right. Like, it could go so hard. Yeah, so I'm just taking a look at this list, seeing if I want to change anything around. Obviously, like, these really aren't going to change because just double checking, making sure like everything's in the right order. Yes. Oh yeah, Cole versus Alex. Do I want to change where Cole versus Alex is? Because do I like Cole versus Alex more than Grinch versus Jack? I don't know. I don't really think so. I think so. It's either going to be the top of 50 or like the bottom of 30. It kind of just depends on like what did I put at number 30 on my list? I think it was like Chaos versus. No. That was number 31. Chaos versus Superhero Squad Dr. Doom. Number 30 was Gwen versus Eve. Do I want this more than Gwen versus Eve? Again, I say it as if we haven't already gotten this fucking episode. I'd say, though, I do like this matchup more. So I'm actually going to put it here at the bottom of top 30. This is a very superfluous change, but I think this is fine. And this, I think this is the right order. Yep. Really like it. Monokuma Koro Sensei. Wile, Tom. Do I put Wile versus Tom above Monokuma Koro Sensei? Yeah, I don't know. Again, it's hard because we are getting this one. You know what? Fuck it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to say that, yeah, I'll put this at the top of really like it. Because I do still love this matchup. I kind of regret not talking about it more because it was overshadowed by Gru versus Megamind for me, but I do really enjoy this matchup. And eventually, again, like, it will happen, and hopefully it turns out great. I know Luis is working on it. I think it's his, like, next big one, right? So, yeah, hopefully that's going to turn out great. I have faith. Monokuma Koro Sensei, I think that's fine. Yep, you two are good. Do I move you down to like it? No, I think I got to be true to myself. I think this is fair to be here. Yep, you guys, Luzanne, Shulk Lightning. Do I put Shulk Lightning above Luzanne? No, I think this is fine. Ghidorah Deathwing. Sans Judge, Cap Ichigo, yep. Yeah, I think this is fine at the bottom. I'll admit, like, part of the reason why this interests me is because of my connection to the characters. If I, like, did not know anything about these two, it would probably be down here. But I think... Sorry, I feel like I'm starting to lose my voice. But I think this is fine to be here. Take it or leave it. Yep. Do I move you? Do I be mean today? Do I move you down to don't want to see it? how spiteful do I want to be with all these composite stuff? I love how I'm just reading the chat for a little bit. I feel like I haven't done that enough. Hey Raptor, fun fact: the fight animation for Kratos vs. Asura is going to be 6 minutes long. 6 minutes long? The hell? Since when? Okay. I mean, if that's true, I'm assuming you're referring to like was it Magfest or no? Whatever. No, it was Magfest. I think that thing that they went to. Okay, that'll be fun. If they confirm that, holy shit. It's crazy to think there's never been a Christmas special, only Halloween. I mean, that's just going to be more popular for a lot of people, but I'd like to see one Christmas thing. Seeing some junk trap debates, obviously, because you got to get that in there. Yep, 6 minutes long. Death Battle will be like we do in Peak now, I guess. I mean, yeah, we'll see about that. Where would you rank the Kickstarter matchups on this list? I might get to that after. That's interesting. But I think for you guys, I think I won't be mean today. I think ultimately it's like I can very easily say that if this matchup did not happen, I would not care. Like, I'd be fine for it to not happen. But to say I actively don't want to see it, I feel like that's just more my bias against, like, compositing, and I don't really think that's fair. I took a shot for every matchup you put in Like It. You probably put in one too many, because Kratos versus Asura is in there twice. Unless, if you're counting really Like It as well as Like It, then that's, yeah, you're dead. I think Kratos versus Asura is dropping next Sunday. I know that's the plan. Okay, let's talk about... I'm going a little off track, but let's talk about something for a second. Why is Death Battle so against, like, releasing or announcing concrete release dates now? Like, I know they were saying that every episode, you know, starting with Kratos versus Asura will come out, like, every 4 weeks. But when they don't, like, you know... Because they used to attach specific release dates to their next time trailers. Now that they're not doing that, it just makes me second guess that statement that it's going to be like every 4 weeks. Like, did Rooster Teeth hold them to like a stricter schedule than they want to be under? It's weird because they seem so much less willing to commit to release dates for seemingly no reason. And with Kratos versus Asura, I kind of understand because it's like them coming back. But even like... for Omni-Man versus Bardock to Joker versus Giorno to Bowser versus Eggman, like, they were not announcing specific release dates on the next time trailer, and I have no idea why. But, I don't know. For what it's worth, I'm still excited. Like, I hope Kratos versus Asura does come out next week, because I don't really have a video plan. And that's part of the reason why I care so much, too, because so much of my schedule hinges on, like, when Death Battle does their stuff. So, I don't really have a video idea prepared for next week. So that's why I'm thinking, like, I hope Kratos versus Asura comes out next week, because then I can, like, do my reaction and my reaction prediction for the next time. So I'm hoping. I am hoping. But yeah, like, for whatever reason it is, I'm sure there is a reason. It's just, it is frustrating from a fan's perspective, and particularly from the perspective of someone who creates content revolving around their content. Like, just knowing their schedule just makes things a lot easier for me, and we used to get that, like, very handily before. But I know someone asked about, what was it, the Kickstarter reveals. So obviously some of them are already here. Where would I put the other ones? So what else is even there? So Omni-Man, I guess if by law we have to do the ones that have already come out. So Omni-Man versus Bardock, again, as far as matchup goes, I would put in really Like It, because I do really enjoy that matchup for Omni-Man. Bowser versus Eggman, top 10, obviously. What else was on there? Kratos versus Asura was on there, but we already got that. Master Chief versus Doomslayer. I guess by default, I'd put it somewhere in Interested. There's no stock to put in the debate for that one. That's the thing. And whenever I get to my prediction video for that, I have no idea what I'm even going to fucking say. Because, like, all there is to talk about for the prediction is who do you think is going to win. So, like, I don't really know what I'm going to do with that. Maybe it'll be, like, a bit of a different video. I don't know. I just think there's no point. But I will make a video about something like that. But I guess by default, I put it in interested. If I was just focusing on the debate, it would be like take it or leave it. But I'd say I'm interested in that one. Mahito versus Shigaraki, that's probably another interested, maybe like it. Again, it's one of those that could probably be in one of them. But again, without Death Battle's involvement with that matchup, I just don't know how much I would be interested in it, you know? So I feel like maybe it would be an interested somewhere. I'm trying to remember what else was even on the list. Aang versus Traveler, that's a very hard take it or leave it. I don't really care about that one that much. Ash versus Yugi, I would probably put that in like it. I understand some people don't like the debate side of it, and some people have other opponents for Ash, but I'd probably put it in like it. Again, it's one of those where it's like, I feel like that's just the one Death Battle has to do no matter what. Like, it's Ash versus Yugi, you know? I just kind of feel like that has to be the way it goes. There are people like, oh, why didn't Ash fight Lucy Heartfilia? It's like, did you really think Ash was going to fight someone else? Like, that's just not how Death Battle rolls for everything. Like, yeah, sometimes they go off book. Sometimes they really do unexpected stuff. But, like, Ash versus Yugi was never not happening, whether it was through the Kickstarter or not. And the fact it's going to be episode 200, yeah, that really makes me interested. So I'm going to say like it. What else? What else was after that? Simone versus Kyle, well, we already got that one. Gru versus Megamind we already got. And Hulk versus Godzilla we already got. Is that all of them? We also have RWBY versus Maka. That one was going to be... Well, I want to say was going to be. I don't think I was playing it out yet. But RWBY versus Maka definitely would have been in my top 50 somewhere if it wasn't confirmed already. I think it would probably be in here, like the top 30, which is, again, really is top 11 to top 30. Like, it would have been somewhere in there. And then I think that's all of them, right? Oh, Light versus Columbo. I have stuff to say about Light versus Columbo, and I want to save... I'm not going to make... I'll say this right now. I'm not going to make, like, a concrete prediction, like a very formal prediction for that one, because I don't really hold bonus episodes to the same standards, and Light versus Columbo is already a little weird in that way. But I am going to make a video in place of that. Like, I'm going to make a video talking about Light versus Columbo in place of that, and maybe give some opinions on on what I think will happen. But I don't, like, I'm going to leave a lot of my talking points for Light versus Columbo for that. And there, would I put it in I think I'd put Light versus Columbo and Take It or Leave It as well, to be honest. But I am also interested in seeing, like, how they pull it off. But it being a bonus episode, like, I don't know. I just don't feel like I can put that much stock into it. It would either be interested or Take It or Leave It, but interested for a very specific reason. Like, it was never one that I was thinking of before Death Battle was talking about it. I think the true answer is somewhere in Take It or Leave It. It's not Light versus Walter, grah. I mean, that's the thing, like, Light versus Columbo is obviously very near and dear to Liam, and I think the way they're doing it is very appropriate. I think the way that they're handling it as like a bonus episode with probably more like story elements, that's the way I think it should be done. I do also think, though, that Light versus Walter is like, I do think that works better from like a straight connections perspective, because Light versus Columbo is more like, what if they were in each other's worlds and they took the roles of their like regular opponents? That does not appeal to me as much. I can understand why it might appeal to some people. It does not appeal to me as much. From a sheer connections perspective, Light versus Walter is better, but I also don't necessarily think it has the best fight dynamic. Like, there's a bit of it you can play off of. But what I'm saying is I do think Light versus Walter fits better if you're making like an official episode where you don't have to change any of the rules per se. But I still don't think it's perfect in that way. I saw someone bringing up like Kevin McAllister versus Ghostface. That's another one where I feel like if Death Battle were to do that, it would have to be a bonus episode, because the question you're answering, excuse me, I just burped live. Thank you. The question you're answering ultimately, even if it does end in death, the question you're answering is not who would win in a fight. It's, can Ghostface reach Kevin? Like, that's not what a death battle is, you know? It, like, even if it does end in death, like, it's another question you're answering. So that's kind of like my threshold for, like, what should get a bonus episode or what should get an official episode. Like, it depends on, like, what's actually happening. Are they fighting? Or is the question more like, can Columbo solve the Kira case? Like, that's not a death battle in and of itself, you know? So, Light versus Walter's fight potential sounds odd since the fight itself is mostly the banter and it feels super unusual. Yeah, like, again, I think it's better than Light versus Columbo. It has some elements that Light versus Columbo wouldn't have, but I still don't think it's perfect. Yeah, Walter versus Light would have to be a bonus episode as well because it's less of a fist fight and more of a cat and mouse chase. Yeah, I mean, that's something you gotta think about too. Like, if you're trying to be really, what's the word? Like, really faithful to what the characters are known for, sometimes they just don't fit in a fight. Like, this is exactly why I don't understand why so many people want, like, Greg Heffley versus Big Nate, or Nate Wright, unironically. Like, if you're trying to be representative of what the characters are, that's not fighting. You can make the comparison between Greg and Nate all you want, but just because you can find similarities between characters does not mean that they should be in a fight to the death situation. Compare them in other ways. Like, say, which books are better written? Who's smarter between Greg or Nate? Like, you know what I mean? Just because you can compare characters does not mean they should be in a fight to the death. Am I making sense? I don't know. This is something I feel very strongly about. People want that unironically? Yeah, I'm pretty sure they do. I put it in one of my versus matchup review videos where I spoke about it as if, like, there were a lot of people that want it unironically just because it's funny, but there were people who were saying, no, I want Greg versus Nate. And it's like, dude, I love Greg Heffley and Nate Wright. I love the book series, but, like, come the hell on. Like, I understand that we're talking about versus debates right now, but that does not mean that every comparison you can make between characters should be in a versus debate. That's Flowey versus Monica's problem too. I'm not gonna lie, I don't know that much about that matchup. I know some people like it though. I want more mean Raptor content. The thing is, like, if you guys start, like, upvoting really bad matchups for my versus matchup review series, you'll get more mean Raptor content. Because I'll just have to, like, I'm not gonna lie about my opinions on a matchup. So, like, you'll get it through that. I don't know, like, would you guys be interested if I made, like, a least wanted death battles list? Like, I think I did that, like, a long time ago, but that's very inaccurate now. Would you actually be interested if I did something like that? If I got, like, really mean for a video or something? I don't know. Flowey versus Monica is really weird. There's plenty of matchups I just enjoy for the comparison and artistic quality without wanting it to be an actual episode. But see, that's the thing. It's like, I feel like matchups should have, like, the prospect of being an episode. So at that point, I wouldn't even call them matchups. You know what I mean? Or at least I wouldn't call them versus matchups. I would just talk about the comparison. Okay, a lot of people are saying yes. Raptor rants. Do it. I need to see you wreck some bad takes. Okay. See, that's the thing. Like, I don't want to say I try to be uncontroversial in videos, but, like, I know for a fact that I am uncontroversial in various videos. But that's not, like, my intention necessarily. It's just that's just the way I kind of go about some of my opinions. And I'm really just here to have fun. There might be some matchups where it's like, oh yeah, no, I really don't want to see that one. But otherwise, it's like Death Battle is doing this for us, you know, to give us a good time. Like, I'm not really in the mood to complain a lot of the time, you know? That's just kind of how I see it. There are some matchups I think could take advantage of the fight not being a fight. Frisk versus Nico is to me an example of that. It could be similar to Scooby versus Courage. I will admit Scooby versus Courage does do it a little differently, where they manage to be, like, really respectful to the characters, while still making it like an official episode. But I do think part of that is enhanced by the fact that it's a draw, and they can't always be doing draws, you know? Mean Raptor vids, Raptor rants. People would pay for you to go Howard Stern about them. Okay, this is good to know. I'll think about this for future videos, because I do have to
plan out some videos. If you guys didn't see my update video, basically my plan for this year is to kind of like, you know, obviously I'll make the predictions and the reactions when necessary or when it happens. The week after that, my plan would be to like release a podcast episode talking about the episode that just came out, like the episode of Death Battle. And then after that, like there could be like 1 or 2 videos between that video, like the podcast video, and the next Death Battle. So my plan is like 4 or 5 videos to release every month. I'm hoping I can keep that up. And obviously those other videos can be like versus matchup review videos. If I feel the need to go back to making like Death Battle trailers, maybe I'll do that. It could be literally anything. I'm hoping to get some more experimental stuff in there. Maybe more stuff like Stitch sings Jailhouse Rocket. That video did not do amazingly, at least not to start, but like I'm very happy I made that because I just wanted to do it, you know? I want to do experimental stuff on this channel. I love doing that. Another idea, what your least favorite matchup says about you. I have considered that before. The problem though is that, like, how different is that actually from Most Wanted? Because theoretically, there are some matchups in those what your most wanted says about you that people would call their least wanted. So how exactly do I do it? Do I pick matchups that I think are bad? But then what if someone actually says it's their most wanted? Then it's like, okay, well then that's kind of like, I guess it would have to be, yeah, I choose matchups that are like unanimously agreed on to be bad or something. I don't know. I guess I could do that. Will you ever go back to Who, When, and Why? That's an interesting question. I always have that in the... If you guys don't know what Who, When, and Why is, I imagine a lot of you guys don't. That was my own personal versus series that I did for a while. Very low budget, low quality stuff, but it was my way to, like, you know, just do research and just, like, give my own thoughts on who I think wins in matchups. I love that series still, but the problem is that you never get less busy as you grow up. There was a point where I found that, okay, if I want to like keep doing YouTube, like I'm gonna have to like cut some of the stuff that's like really like low reward, high effort, because the Who and Why, especially if I made them nowadays, they would not perform as well as like my quote unquote regular content. And I never wanted Who and Why to have like a specific ending. I wanted it to just like fizzle out when it naturally happens. I will say that if I were to ever bring Who and Why back, my plan would be Who and Why on YouTube Shorts. So I would basically just do conclusion for like 3 minutes, because now YouTube has extended their Shorts time to 3 minutes. So I would try to just talk about the conclusion for 3 minutes. Of course, doing the same amount of research I did before, but basically just focusing on conclusion and making them a bit more like highly edited than I did before. But I'm not committing to anything. I'm just saying, like, if I were to bring it back, that's how I would do it. Those were OG Raptor vids. Yeah. Well, I mean, like, it depends how OG you're getting, but yeah. Thoughts on Undertaker versus Itachi? I mean, it's interesting. I'd probably put it in the interested category. Not really something I'm looking forward to outside of like if Death Battle were to announce it, but I think it'd be interested. Return to Bad Battle. Yeah, that's another one that, again, it's like it was just eating up too much of my time. You never get less busy. That's the problem. It's like I needed to prioritize the stuff that was, you know, getting more views. But also, like, it doesn't take as much research to talk about matchups, you know, than it does to research a whole matchup and come to a semi-rock solid conclusion about it, you know? Will you rank the pitched matchup tier list? I think, did I say this at the beginning? I'm not sure if I did. I was like, a couple of people have suggested that to me, and I think that's a great idea. The issue with that is that I've looked at a lot of those matchups and I have like nothing to say about a good majority of them. So with this, I have like stuff to say about all of them, or most of them at least, you know. I have opinions on them. I don't have opinions on a lot of the stuff that people pitched. I think it's great that Death Battle allowed people to pitch stuff, but you got to admit a lot of that stuff is not very widespread. And if it's not that widespread, then again, I'm just one random guy in the community. I'm not keeping up with all the matchups. So, you know, I'm just taking a look at, like, I think this is nice. Now that I've kind of like done this, I can kind of like focus more on the chat. Undertaker versus Itachi exists. I never knew that. To be honest, Batman better for Itachi. I mean, yeah, Undertaker versus Itachi does exist for sure. I've heard it. I've heard of it before. Doomsday versus SCP-682 is a huge request. That's another one that will be in my next versus matchup review video. So I don't want to talk too much about that. I have some very complex opinions on that matchup that I did not have before in the same way, I will say. Thoughts on Homelander versus Red Keeper? I've heard this one a bit, and I actually think it's pretty cool. I think it fits Homelander quite well, just like what he's all about. I think that'd be nice. I don't know if they're ever gonna bring Homelander back though. Raptor, I provided you a picture of a real life Sonic Rain Boom. When will we watch MLP together? You're gonna have to resend that to me. Did you take it yourself though? Because that was part of that was part of the ultimatum. So. Yeah, I have to get back to me on that. What about Amori versus Room? Yeah, I've heard that a bit before. There are a few matchups I feel like I could talk about for the pitched ideas. Like, again, Kurumi versus Homura. That's definitely, like, my favorite out of the ones that I've seen. Amori versus Room, I think, is interesting. I want to read up more about that, because I don't want to say anything too strong without, you know, getting more information on it. But I do think that is pretty interesting from what I have heard. I know that's been going around a lot, and I think it is pretty well deserved. Of course, there's Aaron versus Ken. I want to see Jaeger get his head ripped off. Well, I'm not going to talk about who I think wins that one. It's actually more controversial than I expected, or controversial, like more up in the air for like. There's not really as strong of a consensus as I expected. But yes, Ken versus Aaron. If this was on the like, it'd be like. Where would it be? It'd be here. No. It'd be here. Right here. This is where it would be. Ken versus Aaron is just awesome. Some people call it overrated. I get it. But I also don't get it. I just think it could be great. Thoughts on Plants vs. Zombies versus Angry Birds. Not Pea Shooter versus Red, but an army matchup. I think that's better. I think all of Plants vs. Zombies versus Angry Birds would be more interesting. I think sometimes making a fight an army fight, because there are some matchups where it's like you could make it an army fight, but you don't have to. I think there are a lot of matchups where making it an army fight does actually benefit it, and I think that would be better for it. What if you did a tier list on the who would win poll matchups? Yeah, that'd be interesting. The issue with that is that I think that's a little too self-referential. You know what I mean? Like with this, everyone knows the Tournament of Champions. Everyone knows the champion poll. Everyone knows why these matchups are important. If I was feeling a little more self-referential, then yeah, maybe I could do that. But yeah, I wanted to start off with this. Again, if you like this kind of thing, I can maybe do another stream with this, or maybe again when I have my actual like webcam set up and all that, I might be able to make like an actual video. There are some other tier lists I have in mind, so we'll see about that. Just trying to see what else in the chat. I'm literally just like glancing at the chat, and I feel like there are some good questions that I probably missed. So if I didn't answer a question and you want to ask it again, just on the off chance that I'll see it, I wouldn't blame you for doing that, because I'm not going to be able to like scroll up and see everything. Where would you rank the losing rematch options on the tier list? Well, I don't even know if I can remember all of them. Ben versus Hal would be down here. That'd probably be at like the bottom of the don't want to see it. Mewtwo versus Shadow would be really like it. Although, to be fair, really like it for a rematch, because that's the one I want to see the most. And a lot of the other ones I think would either just go when interested or take it or leave it, because some of them I don't really think need it. Mario versus Sonic 3, I'd probably put in like it. But the rest, yeah, I think it would just be like either interested or take it or leave it. Ben versus Hal, I think, is the only one that like I would very much not want to see. Although, to be fair, maybe Yang versus Tifa and Gaara versus Toph, they might also be down here. Because I just think they're very unnecessary. I don't think there's a point to doing them, like, at all. Are there any other characters you want to see but haven't found a good matchup for them? Spock is the big one. I want Spock on the show. I do not know who he would fight. I've seen people have suggested opponents to me for him, but I have not found a good one that I like. He's the big one that comes to mind. Other than that, I'm not 100% sure. I think a speed run on the Kickstarter pitches could be cool, even if you don't have a lot to say. Yeah, it's not even though that I don't have a lot to say, it's that I don't have a lot of information on them. Like, a lot of it, I think it would just be like, oh, do I like the vibe of this one? Do I like the vibe of that one? And vibe isn't everything, you know? So I feel like I'd be doing a disservice to the people who, like, spend a lot of time making these pitches. I feel like I'd be doing a disservice if I did that, to be honest. I know you're on the Mewtwo vs. Shadow train, but what's your thoughts for Vincent Valentine from Final Fantasy VII for Shadow? That is, I will say that if Shadow had to get another episode and it was not against Mewtwo, Vincent would be my preferred. I don't think I've ever actually said that, but he would be my preferred. But to be fair, the only reason why I'm even like, why I like Shadow coming back for Shadow versus Mewtwo as much as I do is because is because it's a rematch, basically, because it would essentially like replace the old Mewtwo versus Shadow in my head. I don't know if we need Shadow for like another fresh episode, you know, because I think 3 episodes is already pushing it. Batman has 4, even though I will still say that for him to come back in the way that he did for Batman versus Iron Man, that was the best possible way to do it. Rematch Goku Black Xeno versus Reverse Flash. I mean, I don't know. I think Goku Black versus Reverse Flash is already like, you know, for me, it's like a top 3 episode already. Like, I really don't think I need that. If you want it, then sure, but I don't know if it would ever happen. I was very disappointed with the rematch poll choices. Where's Aizen versus Madara? See, that's the thing. Like, it's gonna be very preferential for like what you agree with, what you disagree with, what kind of annoyed you. But I don't know. Ben versus Hal was the only episode, I think. Was it the only one? It was the only one from season 6. I know there were no season 5 episodes on the rematch poll. Were there any season 4 episodes? Season 3, obviously, because that had like Mewtwo versus Shadow, Tracer versus Scout. But the point, they clearly were not interested in redoing like more recent episodes. Ben versus Hal, I think, was a special case. But yeah. Oh, who was honestly asking for a TMNT Battle Royale rematch? I guess the people who did not like Wiz's language in that episode. That one again, though, I would probably put it. Actually, that might be one that I would put in don't want to see it as well, just because I really would just prefer them to do other turtle ideas, like especially Old Man Logan versus Last Ronin. That one I really still want to see. No season 4, although, yeah, I thought Virgil versus Sephiroth was going to be on that list too, actually. I was surprised when it wasn't there. Dante versus Bayonetta, a lot of people wanted to see, but like I think Dante versus Bayonetta is fine. We need more Battle Royales. I definitely like to see that. Do you think Hell of a Boss will be in Death Battle? I think something from either Hell of a Boss or Has Been Hotel could make it, but I have no idea when. It's kind of like SCP for me. It's like they'll put it in whenever it's convenient for them. Like maybe whenever they have like an open slot, and then they'll throw it in. What else we got? I triple dog dare you. Oh, this should be good. To talk about Killer Croc from DC versus Leatherhead from TMNT. I mean, yeah, that's a matchup that's kind of like phased in and out for me from what I've seen. Like I've seen it talked about, and then I don't see it being talked about. Leatherhead versus Killer Croc. I mean, I have to imagine Leatherhead just kind of, his tier is just a little higher just from who he's fought. But I know that DC, like, nothing is like off the table with DC characters. Some of them could do something ridiculous. But if I'm just getting like a general vibe of like how strong, like the strong Batman characters are, I don't know if it'd be strong. Although Batman did cross over with TMNT, so it depends how you want to scale that too. I think Leatherhead versus Killer Croc is okay. Do you think Roblox will be in Death Battle? I don't know. Probably not. Unless they pair it up with something more popular like Minecraft, Well, sorry, Roblox is popular, but I mean more popular in the versus realm, because I haven't heard a lot of people talk about Roblox in versus. Roblox is definitely popular. Sorry, I misspoke. I'm still questioning why Gaara versus Toph in the rematch pool, because who on planet Earth asked for a rematch? Oh, a lot of people. For some reason, people wanted that one. There's a lot of them where I was thinking, why was that on the rematch poll? But there were some where I was like, okay, no. There are people who actively ask for it. I might not understand why, but they do ask for it. And Gaara versus Toph was one of them, unfortunately. But yeah, I just think the point of a rematch should extend beyond, the point of a rematch should extend beyond just reversing the outcome just because you don't like it, you know? There's got to be something else wrong with the episode or something that you really want to see updated. And that's why I gravitated towards Mewtwo versus Shadow, because there's like not many aspects of that episode that's actually good. Whether or not you agree with the outcome, just the production elements, barely any of them are that good. So I felt it was the most deserving. I think Master Chief versus Doomslayer is the most deserving from like a legacy perspective, like just like how much it's been talked about in the community. But like just going like categorically, I think Mewtwo versus Shadow is the most deserving, but I'm also kind of biased because it's kind of like the edgelord version of Stitch versus Rocket. So naturally I'm going to be more drawn to it, but yeah. Just curious, how often do you look at the matchup ideas chat on the Raptorverse Discord? Oh yeah, we do have the Discord server. Join in the you can join down below. It's in the description, I believe. It should be. How often do I look in there? I look in there sometimes. I kind of have to look like everywhere just to make sure everything is running smoothly. But I again, like in terms of just like actual video making, that's not really where I get the versus matchup review ideas from, right? Like that's from the YouTube community tab. So I do look in there, but not really like with the intention of making videos about it, you know? I do kind of want to do like more matchup review videos, but maybe more like, because there was one where I did like my most wanted Halloween death battles. I want to do more stuff like that. You know, stuff where it's like, it's more specific. That way, maybe I can talk about stuff that I wouldn't otherwise be talking about. Although, to be fair, the matchup review videos kind of already do that, where there are some matchups where like, the one that just jumped in my head for some reason was Dr. Evil versus Dark Helmet. I don't think I ever would have talked about that if it wasn't for versus matchup review, you know? Even though I still think that's a funny matchup. Favorite commission tracks from Brandon or Thairwolf? Well, obviously, Will of the Drill is amazing. What other ones have I been? I'll be honest, I do mostly listen to the official tracks, but I do go in and see some of the other ones as well. I was the Amazingly Miraculous. I was kind of on a kick for that one for a while. I do think that one is fun to listen to, but I definitely should like reevaluate that, like go back and listen to other ones. I was happy to see a Ken versus Aaron commission track that he made. Do you believe that creepypastas should be on the show? I think that's a very case-by-case basis. If it ends up being the kind of thing where it's like creepypastas, but only against other creepypastas, yeah, I could see that working maybe. But I think, again, I have said this before in my matchup review video, and I'm not willing to change my stance on this. You need to make sure that a matchup can work before you start making it. Before Death Battle starts producing the episode, you need to make sure that things are like analyzable. You need to make sure that it can actually be made into a satisfying animation. You need to do all of that before you greenlight an episode, in my opinion. And I will say that is like the one thing I will knock against SpongeBob versus Super Friends Aquaman, that I believe it was confirmed that they greenlit the episode before they knew exactly what the dynamic was. And I think the way they handled it by basically turning it into a comedy episode, I think that was the right thing to do, but I still don't think they should have done that. I think if they looked at it and then said, okay, well, let's just make it a comedy episode, let's greenlight it now and now start working on it, I think that's fine. But for them to be like, we didn't know how this was going to work until after we started working on it, I don't think you can do that. I think you have to make sure something can work. Because someone in one of my versus review videos was like, oh yeah, Goose versus Bread, like from the Untitled Goose Game versus I Am Bread. Make sure that shit can work before you do it. And maybe it can. Like, I'm not the most knowledgeable about those games, but what I'm saying is that there's a little red flag going off in my head, which is like, make sure it can work. Make sure you can do it, you know? Anyway, I've ranted about that for too long and too many times, but I hope people don't like disagree with that, because to me that feels like such an obvious thing to do, to make sure it can work before you actually, like, it's kind of like, you know, green lighting like a movie or something before you have like even just the most basic things ready for it. Like, don't do that. Make sure it can work. Make sure you know how you can do it. I recall people quickly jumping on board with SpongeBob versus Popeye. That one actually almost made it into my Dream Season video. It was either that one or Pete versus Bluto. And Pete versus Bluto I eventually decided on because I wanted a higher concentration of villains compared to what it would have been otherwise. But SpongeBob versus Popeye as like a Toon Force battle, yeah, I think that could work if you really want, like, you know, SpongeBob and Popeye to come back and, like, I don't want to say, like, obviously a more serious thing for SpongeBob, but for Popeye, it's like, you know, why don't you pick on someone your own size, you know, that kind of thing. Because if you understand how his Toon Force works, then, like, yeah, so there's no, I know Saitama's gotten stronger in his manga, but that, like, you know, at least at the time, it just didn't really work that way. But with SpongeBob, you know, there might be more things to talk about. If you could have pitched any fight to the Death Battle team, what would you have done? 1,000% Dark Willow versus White Violin. Some of you listening are probably wondering, what the hell are you talking about? But you know, that's a matchup. It's in my top 50. I think it's like number 15 or something. So it would go like right here. It'd be at the top of this tier, actually. Dark Willow, by the way, from Buffy the Vampire Slayer versus White Violin from the Umbrella Academy. So that's the matchup I would pitch, because I still really enjoy that matchup. And it's by far my most personal, obscure idea. I don't think I've seen, like, anyone else talk about that matchup. So, like, that's what I would pick. Speaking of which, what's your opinion on Toon Force versus non-Toon Force users? Again, it really is a case-by-case basis thing. I think, generally speaking, either you need to, like, if you have a Toon Force character and you have a non-Toon Force character, the non-Toon Force character needs something, like, equally absurd. And I know that might be impossible when it comes to Toon Force, so maybe I won't say equally, but it needs something, like, super absurd. Like, I was even thinking, like, Plankton versus Mr. Mind. That's a matchup I kind of like. I'll be honest, I kind of like that one. I know not everyone likes it. But to me, it's like, you have Toon Force versus the DC ridiculousness. Like, this isn't like a Super Friends Aquaman situation. Like, Mr. Mind is really powerful if you give him everything, you know? So, to me, that's an example of, like, Toon Force versus non-Toon Force where, like, it could work. But if you're more so just doing, like, Toon Force versus, like, a quote-unquote regular character that just happens to give off, like, similar vibes, I don't know. I think Bobobo versus, like, what is it? Bobo versus Uncle Grandpa. I think that one works a little better. That was another one in my Dream Season, because I think they both have something, like, really crazy, although that might end up being more akin to Saitama versus Popeye, where it's like, yeah, they both have something crazy, but one of their brands of crazy is just so obviously better, you know? So you gotta look more into that stuff, right? You gotta make sure. I'm with you, Raptor. Buffy the Vampire Slayer needs to be on Death Battle. Hell yeah. I think if it is gonna happen, it's probably either gonna be Blade versus Buffy, which is another one in my top matchups. I think it's like, it would be like here. I think it's like somewhere around here. So I think it's either gonna be that one, or it's gonna be or Buffy versus someone else. You might put Buffy against other characters. If it's not Buffy, probably Hermione from Harry Potter versus Willow, because that one's gotten some more traction. And I don't want that one to happen because I want Dark Willow versus White Violin. But again, it's kind of like a Percy Jackson situation where it's like, I want Willow on the show, period. So, like, if that's the only way to get her on the show, and I knew that for sure, then I would be in support of it. But again, kind of like similar reasoning to this, I'd put it in here because I just want something else too much, you know? Got any predictions for what the live action Ismahawk episode is going to be? My money is on Moon Knight versus Azrael. My guess is they're going to try something other than Marvel versus DC, actually. I just think they would probably do something different than that, because doing like 3 live action Marvel versus DCs in a row, I don't know. I think maybe they would try something else. My personal route would be Kirk versus Han. Because I think you could make that work if you have the right access to the right like special effects. But I guess, yeah, if it had to be Marvel versus DC, I think Moon Knight versus Azrael is a decent pick if they can get the costuming right. Because Nightwing versus Daredevil and Winter Soldier versus Red Hood, they definitely don't like... It's not that their costumes are more simple, but they definitely seem easier to make. So, yeah, if it had to be Marvel versus DC, I think Moon Knight versus Azrael is definitely a good choice. But I think it could be something other than that. Hermione's better, not gonna lie. Okay, you can believe that. I don't believe it. Yeah, Han Solo versus Captain Kirk for the Ismahawk. That'd be my... I don't want to say be my guess, but that would be my hope. I really hope that one is the one that we get, but we'll see. Hopefully it's Indiana Jones versus Jack Sparrow. Yeah, if they can play up the ridiculousness of the characters well enough. I remember I saw Indiana Jones, The Dial of Destiny, and I saw like the flashback scene at the beginning where they were talking about... where they were fighting like on top of the train and all that. And I remember thinking like, was Indiana Jones always this superhuman? And it turns out, yeah, he basically was. I just completely forgot. So as long as they can like represent that well enough, although then again, like I sound a little silly saying that because like they put Winter Soldier in a live action thing, you know, like, and he's pretty superhuman. So as long as they can still like be close enough to like visually how the characters feel, yeah, I think that's a great option for live action. We all want Hermione to fight Juggernaut, shaking my head. Yeah, that'd be great. Juggernaut versus Archie Knuckles is the one that I want. That's another one where I would put it in a really like it. Not in my top 50, at least not yet. Again, things could change depending on like if anything in the top 50 actually happens, but right now it's in really like it, and probably like on the higher side. I think it's a cool idea. It's my favorite matchup for Juggernaut or any version of Knuckles at this point. I definitely won't complain if I lose my bet if Indy versus Jack was a live action. Yeah, I mean, like I got nothing to complain about with that one. Since Gon's most popular matchup is Deku, and he already appeared on Death Battle, and Yusuke will most likely fight someone else, who do you think is the best matchup? The best matchup for Gon? I mean, I do kind of agree. Like, I think if they are going to bring Miles back, he might even fight Miles Morales. Like, they might do a double run back with that. Another one that I was considering putting in my dream season, actually, but it didn't win out. For Gon, I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't really think it would be Yusuke. I think Gon would be great to be on the show. I think it's really cool that they have a Hunter x Hunter character on the show finally. For who he could fight, I'm not sure. There aren't a lot of other like big options left for him from what I can remember. Think DBX will return someday? My guess is yes, but not soon. I think as far as independent Death Battle goes, even though, again, we smashed the hell out of that fundraiser, and that's awesome. I think their priority needs to be on making Death Battles. And something that I did kind of piece together, which I'm a little disappointed about, is the fact that I think the reason why Season 10 was so godlike is because they didn't have any other series going on at the same time. They didn't have Death Race, they didn't have DBX, they didn't have a Desk of Death Battle even. I think the fact that they could put like all of their attention towards the episodes was the reason why on average that was so good. I know they also said they went a little over budget, but I think that also contributes to it. So I'd be hyped to see DBX come back, and I think one day it very well could, but there would be a part of me that's thinking like, okay, well, will Death Battle suffer for this? We'll have to wait and see, you know? What else we got? Again, I'm just taking a look at the chat at this point. I've heard Dai from Dragon Quest versus Gon. Okay. My best familiarity with Dragon Quest is when my brother beats me in Smash Bros as Hero Alt 4. That's like my most, you know, that's the most experience or anything I have with Dragon Quest. Any predictions for the Torian fight? Part of me is thinking Spy versus Agent 47, actually. I think that could work because I think it just fits him really well. My personal route would be Deathstroke versus Taskmaster. I think Spy versus Agent 47 could work as the 3D episode. And I know there are other options. But I think if I had to pick like a single one, it would be this. Just because, again, like, that this is one that, like, for all intents and purposes is not on, like, the Kickstarter lineup, because it's just going to come out whenever it comes out. And I think they might just default to something that they know a lot of people want to see. So either this or maybe something else from the 3D side of the champion poll. But I think this one fits him the best. So I think for now we'll say that. Favorite and least favorite Bakugo matchup. Oh my fucking god, Bakugo. Yeah, I don't know. Bakugo is a character, because I also have another series of polls on my channel, which is like, who's your preferred matchup for this character? And I've wanted to do one for Bakugo, but limiting it to 4 characters is ridiculous. Like, I've tried, and I'm not sure how I'm gonna do that. I think eventually I will make that poll. Because who does he have? He has Yang, he has Shinra, he has Agent Venom. He has so many freaking opponents. I know I barely even scratched the surface with that. I think Jubilee and Rexplode have also kind of been thrown into the fray for him. He has so many options. So I have no idea. I really have no idea. I'd have to think about that more. Torian might do RWBY versus Maka. See, that's the thing. I'd feel a little cheated if his episode was something else that was confirmed on the Kickstarter. You know what I mean? Like, what was it? Not Liam, Luis is doing the Wile versus Tom animation, but I would not be happy if that meant that took the spot of his, Luis does a hand-drawn animation. Like, I would not be happy if this took the spot of that. So for RWBY versus Maka to be confirmed on the Kickstarter, and then for it to be like, oh, this is also the one that Torian's doing, I'd feel a little cheated with that. Unless you really want to see Torian do that episode specifically, in which case you get what you want. But I don't know, that's just kind of the way I see it. An obscure matchup you want from me personally is Chaos versus Lord Vortek, which is in my top 10, by the way. I personally prefer Chaos versus Superhero Squad Doctor Doom, but there is definitely a big bias portion of that. I think Chaos versus Vortek, if they did that one as well, I would find a way to live with it. The Raptor, do you think Death Battle is biased to some extent? I personally don't think so. I believe that they're biased just because they don't necessarily understand the series like Black Clover. Yeah, that's basically my take on it, that they believe what they are saying and they do try their best with what they do. But in terms of like, oh, they specifically go out of their way trying to have characters win, no, I don't think they do that. I think if anything, like, they make mistakes, right? So I think if anything, like, someone might say, oh, they're biased because they didn't do this. I think it's more like they just didn't have a good enough understanding of everything. And of course, they should be trying to have better understandings of as much stuff that they can do. But I don't think it's that they're going out of their way to have characters win. At least not anymore. Like, there might be, like, maybe a handful of episodes where you might be able to say, well, what did they do here? Like, but I don't think that's the case. At least not right now. Yeah, exactly. No team is ever going to be perfect for every series. Because that's the thing. It's like, you don't just want them to cover the series that the crew members are already familiar with, because for all we know, that could eliminate series like Fate. Like, I don't know if anyone's interested in Fate in that series, in that crew, but you don't want them to be like, oh, that means we're never going to use a Fate character. Like, you probably still want to see them try at least, right? And then you get angry if they do it wrong, or if you don't like how they did it, but you don't just want them to stick to the stuff that they already know, because then that's just going to eliminate possible matchups, and I know no one wants that. Bakugo Squidward. Oh yeah, that one. Yeah, that one exists. I don't know why, but I actually do know who made that, though. I do know who started that trend, and he's a good guy. He's a nice guy. What would be your reaction to Jonesy versus Robloxian? Okay, so this is a Roblox character. Again, I'm just not that invested in Fortnite, but I would roll with it. I think any episode with Jonesy or Agent Jones or whoever, I think any episode with that has the potential to be amazing. Just because of, like, the stuff at, like, the stuff, what's at, disposal. What's at their disposal, I can't speak. Just the stuff that you can work with for it, So I think any Fortnite episode could be great. If Batman comes back, I'm hoping it's not against another Marvel character. I don't think Batman needs to come back at all at this point, but I can understand that, yeah. I mean, Batman versus Moon Knight, I think, is still, like, his most popular opponent now, just, like, in terms of a widespread perspective. And I think the Death Battle cast episode of Batman vs. Moon Knight did quite well. Although, granted, I think it's because, like, the Moon Knight series and the Batman movie were coming out at the same time, so that might have been why it did well. But I don't think Batman needs to come back at all, personally. What is the worst matchup idea you've ever seen in your honest opinion? I think one time many, many years ago, I saw Sentry from Marvel versus Captain America from Marvel. So I think by default, that's just the worst one I've ever heard. You're not going to hear me say anything, you know, like, really popular, because I think, like, the worst matchup you've ever heard is just going to be something that, like, one random person threw together at one point, right? So I'm not going to say anything, like, I'm not going to say, like, Junk Trap or anything. I don't even think, like, I think Junk Trap's fine. I've said this in my versus match review video. Like, I think it's okay. But I'm not going to say anything popular anyway, because it's just going to be something that one random person just posted and I saw. Sentry or Century? No, Sentry. So Sentry versus Captain America. Same series matchups are bad by default, but that's just silly. I mean, most same series matchups, I will say, are not great, unless it's like a battle royale or it's something that's motivated by something else. Like I know people like to knock Gogeta versus Vegito, but I will say that, like, within the world of Dragon Ball, it is, like, a nearly impossible circumstance to, like, see that play out in canon, or at least maybe in the way that you would want to see it. Because I know with like the game continuities or all that, like, that might get a little confusing, but I think, like, just for Gogeta versus Vegito, like, that is, like, the best same series Dragon Ball matchup you could come up with, because it's just not something you would see regularly, you know? I think that is a better approach. If you must do same series matchups and they must be, like, 1v1, I think that is a better approach than just something like, I don't know, Human Torch versus Iceman or something, like the Hot and Cold from Marvel, you know? Like, that's not, I don't like that as much. What do you think the next Marvel vs. DC episode will be? I feel in my bones it should happen soon. Well, if they're waiting all the way until October for that, I think Mysterio vs. Scarecrow could be the next one. Other than that, I think Moon Knight vs. Azrael, you know, that's still a pretty big one that people have talked about. I don't think it's going to be Deathstroke versus Taskmaster unless Torian ends up animating that one. See, again, like, I like Deathstroke versus Taskmaster a lot. That's my most wanted Marvel versus DC fight now, but I'm not just going to say, oh yeah, no, it's definitely going to happen. Like, there's a difference between what you want to see and what you think is going to happen. Same reason exactly why I put Cap versus Ichigo down here, even though I've been talking about it, like, forever, because I've just been talking about it because I think it's likely, not because I particularly love it. What time are we at? Okay, I think we're gonna end this in a few minutes, probably. Because at this point we'll have been streaming for like 2 hours, right? I just realized you guys have been just listening to me. Like, you've been staring at, like, a still image for this whole time, basically. Aside from, I guess, the music in the background. I think Mysterio vs. Scarecrow would be great as the Ismahawk episode. That would be interesting, although I think an animation would allow it to go crazier. Like, don't get me wrong, the way that they could do the illusions in live action would be very spooky. I think that there's a lot of room for, like, actually making it scary. But do you want scariness, or do you want more, like, over the top, you know, illusions? It kind of just depends on what you prefer. I think I prefer more the over the top side, but if you really want to prioritize, like, spooky illusions and, like, in a more grounded area, then yeah, like, that could work well. Hereafter, have you ever seen Fan Battle? I've heard of it. I have not seen it, but I do want to check it out. What would be your reaction to Queso in Death Battle? I don't think Queso's coming to Death Battle. I feel like some people don't understand the difference between, like, joking about matchup, because eventually, like, a matchup or a character for a matchup can start as a joke, and then it gets talked about so much that people actually start to think that it's likely. Like, can we stop with that? just something to throw out there. Not everything is likely for Death Battle, even if you want it, even whether you want it ironically or unironically. Not everything is likely for Death Battle. Not even everything is guaranteed for Death Battle. Like, yeah, a lot of these matchups are popular, and of course this is in the Tournament of Champions, so this is kind of like a biased selection anyway, but like, you can throw out a matchup that's been talked about a lot. It doesn't mean it will happen. Like SpongeBob versus Gumball, I don't even know if that matchup will happen anymore, you know? So, but that was one that was talked about by a lot of people. Deku versus Gon, that was one that was talked about by a lot of people. It's very likely it just may never happen. So we have to definitely limit our expectations, you know? Just because we want to see something does not mean it's a guarantee. And just because something started as a joke does not mean it will eventually become a non-joke. Okay? Just want to throw that out. If you decide to do the pitch tier list video, I would suggest waiting a while as more matchups are being added. Okay, so that's definitely fair. So if it's not even finished yet, then yeah, like the tier list ideas that I have, like I was thinking about maybe doing like a Death Battle Seasons tier list. Maybe like I could do that as an actual video instead of a stream, because I have wanted to do like a seasons ranking video before, but I find it very difficult to articulate what I like more about one season or not. So I feel like doing it in like a tier list style thing like this, I feel like that could be better. I might be able to more articulately say why, you know, I would make those decisions. And I was gonna leave this for later, but I guess I can throw it out right now. There is a part of me that once we reach the end of this year, I might do like a massive tier list for Death Battle 2023, 2024, and 2025. Because technically, I did not rank Death Battle Season 10, and I kind of still don't want to, but I feel like maybe at the end of 2025, I could do like a massive tier list of all 3 of those years. So the 4 episodes that were in 2024, the 16 episodes that were in 2023, and then I think the 12 episodes that will be in, 2025. So if you're interested in something like that, let me know. But of course, that wouldn't happen for like a long time. What are your thoughts on Gwen Tennyson versus Adam Eve? That's in my top 30. That would definitely be up here. I really like that matchup now. I think that's a great matchup. What else we got? So Raptor, what are your thoughts on Big Boss versus Nick Fury Sr.? Both as a matchup and as a live action. I'm not sure if I've heard that one thrown around that much before, but that seems interesting. It depends on like if Death Battle has enough faith in the matchup doing well, just based on the characters being used. But they're still pretty popular. Yeah, I could see that. And as a live action, yeah, I think it could work really well. Can't wait for you to rank literally every Death Battle episode ever. Yeah, that was an idea I was thinking, because the whole reason why I did my top 50 was because I wanted to motivate people to fund Gru versus Megamind. So I basically just said like, hey, you know, I'll do like a massive like most wanted Death Battles video if it reaches $800,000 or whatever. So that's the only reason why I even did this, because eventually like Gru versus Megamind did get funded, so I said, okay, I'll do a top 50. Ranking every Death Battle was an idea I had for being like, okay, if we get this funded, I'll rank every Death Battle. That's another thing though that scares me. It's something that I feel like I could do eventually, but again, I don't really want to. It's the kind of thing where I think watching Death Battle, even though I record myself watching Death Battle and all that, I find that to be a very personal thing, and that's why mostly my content revolves around matchup ideas rather than like, you know, necessarily reviewing Death Battle episodes. And I am doing that a little more with the podcast episodes, but in terms of like ranking every Death Battle episode, like I don't really feel the need to do that. Like I'm fine with Death Battles just not being compared to each other, just being their own product. I'm perfectly okay with that. So it might happen one day, but it's not really on the top of my to-do list. What do you think of Monokuma versus the frontman from Squid Game? Well, obviously I like Monokuma versus Koro Sensei more. I think I want to get into Squid Game, although I might be losing my Netflix soon, so we'll see about that. I almost forgot Among Guys was part of the champion ballot and was confused. Yeah, that'll do it. It's been a while. Again, I feel like I'm kind of late to the party with this because like the Tournament of Champions ended over a year ago, let alone the champion ballot, but I just thought this would be a fun thing to do. Most wanted series to return that hasn't been used in a while would be Guilty Gear. Yeah, again, kind of like Ragna with Velvet. I think bringing back Soul or just bringing in another Guilty Gear character or another Blaze Blue character, I think it'd be nice for Death Battle to try to like just do better with those series. Maybe put some more time into it. Which new series would you like to appear in? I'm assuming you're asking which new series would you like to appear in Death Battle and not what series would I personally like to appear in myself. I did a whole video on this, but I think the main ones were Star Trek, Looney Tunes, which again is part of why I really like that this matchup is coming. It's one of my most wanted series now coming to the show. Of course, Bugs versus Mickey is the one I want more, but so yeah, Star Trek, Looney Tunes, Umbrella Academy, that's another big one. Buffy would be a big one. What else? What else did I put? Because I did this like categorically by like medium. I think, oh yeah, Percy Jackson was one. That's an obvious one. Skylanders for video games. Again, Chaos versus Superhero Squad, Doctor Doom would be my big one. And I think there was one more. Oh yeah, anime, Bakugan. That's one I want to see. Bakugan. Specifically Dan versus Jinga. That's one that would again, in somewhere in my top like 11 to 30. I think it's like in the high teens or something. That's one I really want. I prefer Pete versus Bluto over Donald versus Daffy. Of course, Mickey versus Bugs is a huge one. I wouldn't say, personally, I would put Donald versus Daffy above Pete versus Bluto, but I totally respect that. It kind of just depends on what breed of violence, cartoon violence you want to see. Because even like within Looney Tunes, they all have their own styles, right? Which just makes it so great. For me, most wanted to see is Harry Potter, and I love Skylanders. Well, Harry Potter has been on the show, but I guess even for just returning, yeah, you could say that. Yeah, Skylanders was so much fun. I don't play it anymore, but oh man, that was a time. That was my childhood. Predictions for the Louise hand-drawn episode. My money is on Aku versus the Lich. Before my prediction was Bendy versus Cuphead, actually. I'm not 100% sure about that now. I think there was like one Death Battle crew member who may have like subtly said, oh yeah, we might not be doing that episode, but other than that one, like it'd just be like another kind of cartoony episode. But they haven't done, have they done like a cartoon? Sorry, not a cartoon, like a video game hand-drawn episode? Because that'd be an easy way to do it. I don't even like Bendy versus Cuphead that much as a matchup, to be honest. Like that's definitely one that would be like a hard interested for me. Just to see how they handle it. But it's another one like Ash versus Yugi where I think it is going to happen. I think that's the one that's going to happen. But other than that one, if I had to pick something else, I don't know. Aku versus the Lich, which I think, again, is another one. I'm just spoiling my entire next Death Battle versus matchup review video. I think that's another one that's in there. So I'll talk about that one later. But I think that, yeah, if they're prioritizing that one, I think that one could be cool for it. They already confirmed that Wile versus Tom is hand-drawn. Yeah, no, I'm aware. And that is one that Luis is doing. But I do believe that the Luis does a hand-drawn episode tier that was on the Kickstarter. I'm at least hopeful it didn't refer to this, and it refers to something else. Although there was a time where I was thinking, oh, then it's definitely going to be in 2025. But now that I think about it, if this one is a Luis hand-drawn animation and it comes out in 2025, then the Luis hand-drawn that was on the Kickstarter, like the other one, that might actually be pushed to next year. I think the live-action one will probably be next year. The Torian one, I could see that one being this year. We'll see. The thing is, we already have so many of these announced, right? So it's hard to say. Yeah, I'm really going to have to retitle this to, like, I might retitle this to, like, plus Q&A, because, like, the whole second half of this just ended up being, like, a huge Q&A thing. I'm sorry for all the people who are, like, not seeing, like, I'm not able to answer everyone's questions or catch everyone's stuff. Like, I'm missing, like, 95% of it. But, again, like, I didn't really expect this to be a Q&A type thing. But I think generally, yeah, this is where I would leave my tier list. I kind of wish I could zoom out because you can't really see everything, but this is like, so yeah, top 10, top 30, top 50, really like it. I think, yeah, again, I'm just looking over this again. I think Peacemaker vs. Soldier Boy is fine here. I think this is all ordered well, but yeah, this is the really like it. So this is the stuff that, like, if some of these happen, I could see some of these, well, not Wile versus Tom because it is happening, but, like, I could see some of these potentially, like, filling up, like, the new, like, spot 50, spot 49, stuff like that. And of course, there are other matchups that are not on this, in this tier list that would also fit that bill, but just for what's in here. And then like it, so stuff that I'm actively interested in. Interested, which again means, like, if Death Battle announced it, then it's like, okay, then I'll be on board for it, so they see how it goes. Take it or leave it, and then don't want to see it. Again, this is all very personal stuff. Don't read into this too much. But I just thought this would be a fun thing to do. What are the numbers, Raptor? What do you mean by the numbers? Not sure what you mean by that, but okay. Raptor, you are violating 7 different Geneva Conventions. What are your thoughts on Starfire versus Blaze? I think it could be interesting. I know that you've thrown out like Archie Blaze and regular Blaze for Starfire. I just don't really know how much more like DC versus Sonic we need. I think we've only had like one of that. Like that might not be fair to say because I think we've only had one. But like, I guess Starfire is different enough from like the other Herald style characters that it could work. And Death Battle, especially after Bowser versus Eggman, seems to know a lot more about how to scale Sonic. So that could be interesting. The numbers, Raptor, what are they? What the hell do you want? Do you want like nuclear codes? I don't know what you're talking about. The numbers, I'm going to keep the numbers to myself. Well, I know I said I was going to stop by this point. Just want to see if there's anything else I want to just go. I'm just watching the chat at this point, seeing if there's anything else I want to answer. What are your thoughts on Ben 10 coming back to Death Battle? I'd like the series to come back to Death Battle. Him himself, it depends on the matchup, and it depends on how much I can avoid the internet, probably. Although that might just be depending on whether or not he wins. So, I don't know. We'll see about that. Okay, well, I think we're actually just going to stop it right here. Again, thank you all so much for joining. I really do appreciate it. Again, if you want to see something else like this, whether it's a stream or an actual video, let me know. I will keep the idea for the Kickstarter pitches tier list in the back of my mind. But again, I do feel like there are some other tier lists where I would just have more to say, like a potential seasons tier, like a Death Battle seasons tier list, or again, like everything from 2023 to 2025 as the episodes. Still thinking about that one. We'll have to see. But if you want to see stuff like this, let me know. Like I'd be interested in doing something like this again in some form. If you enjoyed this stream, of course, please give it a like. I don't know when the next stream is going to be. I don't know what it's going to be about. But again, I consider myself basically back to YouTube. So next week, hopefully, will be Kratos versus Asura. Both of these guys will be the reaction to both of these guys and the prediction for whatever ends up being the next episode. And then, yeah, from that point on, it'll be like the podcast episode for Kratos versus Asura the next week. And then after that, it could be whatever. Probably, I would probably try to get the versus matchup review video out before the episode after Kratos versus Kratos versus Asura. I'd probably try to get the versus matchup review video out before the episode after Kratos versus Asura comes out. That was a mouthful. Holy shit. But okay. Yeah. Thank you guys so much. I see everyone saying thank you. See you later. Yep. Hope you guys had a great time. And yeah, that's it for me. I will see everyone in the next video or stream or whatever happens. Have a great day and peace out.